It is what it is it? How many times have you heard this phrase? It is what it is. What does this phrase communicate to you? I find this phrase to be so interesting, and it's been said a gazillion times over the past 2 years. In our conversation today, we'll look deeper into this popular phrase to see what else could possibly be on offer. We're going to have a conversation today on it is what it is. And in the work that I do, my primary focus is in what causes human beings to suffer and what helps eliminate suffer and struggling for a human being. So in my work, that's to me what is the most fascinating piece about what I get to do is I stay curious about that, and it shows up and teaches me almost every day. Because somehow it looks so synonymous with human beings and the nature of life is, it seems like it's natural to struggle. And I think it's a learned behavior. I don't think it's part of the system. So in this conversation, what I thought would be fun to talk about, it is what it is, or is it? And I don't know if you guys have heard that a lot this in the past couple of years, or even prior to that, where people tend to use that statement a lot. Just when there's like nothing else to fill the space, it's kind of like, well, it is what it is. So, have y'all heard that? And in what ways do y'all receive that when people say it, or have you said it yourself?
I've said it.
And so when you say it or when you hear it, what does it mean for you?
I think it means something that I don't feel like I can change.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's usually about something outside of me more so, I guess, but it could be more than that. And that's what you're going to tell me.
Oh. But I like that. It's like, it looks like something you can't change, or you have no control over. Okay, great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just see it as something, that you say when you don't know what else to say. You don't, you just, when somebody has something happening, there's nothing you can do about it, or if there's something happening to you and there's nothing you can do about it, just kind of something you say.
Yeah, that's a good one. And when you said that, it's like, I immediately wanted to throw my hands in the air and go like, I got nothing, So that's a real good point.
It's kind of a conversation ender.
Wraps it up, doesn't it? It wraps it up. Yeah.
Stumps, yeah.
So since my work is about eliminating struggle in the lives of what looks universal in human beings' lives, it's like, it is what it is. Like we said, it seems to be a statement when we don't know what to say. It's going to be a conversation ender, or we're really realizing we have no control in it. So I was curious with that statement about it is what it is. When you've used it or when you've heard it, especially when you've used it, does it feel neutral to you on the inside? Does it feel completely neutral? Yes.
I would say for me that at times, at least what I can think of at the moment, that there's a level of acceptance with it. It's like, it's what it is. I don't need to keep running around in a circle trying to fix it, because it is what it is. What's the difference? I mean, and if I could just accept the way it is without trying to change it my way and wait for the change to happen, and I never know where that's going to come from, which is exciting to me, except when I'm in. it's a level of acceptance, which comes after, for me, comes after the awareness of it. There's the awareness, there's the acceptance, and then there's action. But what's beautiful with that comment typically is, oh, I don't have to do anything. I just have to wait. And invariably, the universe, you know, the higher intelligence, whatever we want to call it, something happens. And then I get to be aware all over again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've learned that that expression can be supported rather than, oh, never mind, I just don't want to talk about it.
That is a real good point about the possibility of it being supportive versus something else you need to eat and stuff. You know? Or
Right.
So that place about, like, if you check inside yourself and the curiosity of it is what it is, I'm inviting you to see if it feels neutral. And the reason why I'm raising that question is that oftentimes we believe it is what it is. We don't question if it's not neutral on the inside.
Mhm.
Okay, so if we go, it is what it is, and I'm still irritated and angry and believing my own story about what I think I'm seeing, I'm using this question to kind of stimulate some curiosity to get you out of what story you might be projecting onto the facts. Because a lot of times our mind is so clever in selling us what its vision of what we're seeing that we think we're seeing facts. And we might be seeing facts, but we might be seeing a whole lot of me on top of those facts. Kind of like, it's a crazy analogy, but kind of like the facts are a slice of bread, and then the peanut butter is all of my story on top of those facts. I'm smearing a whole lot of me on top of that piece of bread, and it's a story combined with the facts. And it typically, when there's all that peanut butter on that piece of bread, it's not so neutral.
I think it has a downer tone,
Oh,
but I don't know if that's not, that doesn't seem neutral, really. Neutral doesn't seem like a downer tone.
No, because neutral would be neutral. I don't know how you would define neutral other than not having a plus or a minus on it.
Yeah. It's kind of like saying I give up too.
Oh. Well,
like,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, you
next. That's a great awareness. I think that's a great awareness to see that in your own way of carrying it, you carry it as that it has a downer tone. Because it's in the place of being curious about it is what it is. If we want to suffer less, struggle less, and we can be, to me, the key to suffering less and struggling less is to get curious. To just truly stay curious. If you feel like there's a lot of you, it's not so neutral. Getting a spoonful of it is what it is. If it's not neutral, it has a lot of interpretation on it. And interpretation would be your personal vision of the situation. You've personalized the facts, I guess, is a simpler way of saying it.
That's what comes to mind for me. When it depends on what the circumstances are as to why I'm saying it. And, the first thing that comes to mind is probably not the, best thing, but, like, for instance, there's an individual that comes, to me and tells me the same things over and over again. They'll ask for a suggestion. And, and then after the umpteenth time, it's like, well, it is what it is, so that may be kind of negative, but, it's like, you know, that's one circumstance. Other times, you know, I think it just depends, you know, on what the circumstance is as to what the, you know, the, I don't know, meaning behind it, you know, would be. Yeah,
Mhm.
because other times, you know, I'm totally sincere. It's like I want to be supportive, but I'm not sure how to be supportive at that moment, you know, or it's something going on with me, and you know, there's not really anything I can do about it immediately. So I'll say it is what it is, and not being harsh with myself or anything. Just, you know, that's what it is in the moment. Doesn't mean it's not going to change or whatever. So I don't know. To me, it depends on the circumstances and what's going on, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
I think you bring a good question to, I mean, a good component to that, Phyllis, is in what the suffering part is when you start to be attached to the outcome, you know, when you're about to throw your hands in the air and go, oh, it is what it is. But it feels like when you walk away from that, it's not neutral because there's an attachment to outcome. Like, my God, I've told them 15 times, why didn't they listen? You know? So you can, again, put your hands up in the air and do, you know, come back to a place of neutrality, going, it's a person, asked a question, gave an answer, end of story. And that might be a way of allowing your ride to be a little smoother, out of habit of getting not detached or not getting as attached to what you feel like should happen.
Well, I don't want to be totally rude or mean to someone who keeps asking me the same thing over and over again. You know, but you know, after a while, it's just like, you know, you don't really want to hear what I have to say. So, you know, what else do you do? But I don't want to be rude or nasty, you know, but maybe it is.
I don't know, but if you could be curious about why they ask a question again.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be curious. All right. I think because I listen. But anyway.
Yeah, might be curious to ask why. I'm curious why you bring this question to me again, not from a prickly place, but even from a, do your best to be from a neutral place, to really be curious about, because they may not even realize it.
I don't know. I'm too prickly for that.
I love it. I love it. Excuse me. So I'm thinking about that one of the main points that I wanted to bring forth was that our mind can really sink its teeth into how we're seeing things. Really sink its teeth how we're seeing things when we hear that it is what it is. And when our mind sinks its teeth into something, it's a great way to notice that our teeth are really kind of sinking into a topic is if it doesn't feel neutral. And if you want to struggle less in any situation, to me, the antidote is to be curious. And so if you're really struggling with something, or you're throwing your hands up about something, is it a place to begin to be curious, if it's not neutral, is to come back to a place of, am I willing to be wrong about this? Does that help you get closer to sitting in a neutral state of mind? And if you're not willing to be wrong about it, that kind of could show you the degree to which your mind has determined something. Am I willing to be wrong about this? I think about it like in ways where you dealt with a very difficult personality, and then you do that. Oh gosh, it is what it is. She's everything I think she is. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, what am I willing to be wrong about that? just to open the door. And I'm not saying you need to go any farther than that, because if you've cracked the door with an inquiry, it's space for fresh information to come in. And at some point in time, the information will come. But if we're really locked in, if our mind is really locked in and closed off, there's no space for new to come. So am I willing to be wrong about that? That tends to help me come back to a place of curiosity on my way to neutral.
When I hear that, the times that I've heard it most recently was when my employer would say that to a customer when they question a price, and he says, "It is what it is." And what I make up about the rest of it is, if you don't like it, go someplace else, you know? And I think that for him, it to me, like was said earlier, that it's a conversation stopper. I mean, it's like, the door is dropped down. I don't know.
That's a good, it doesn't sound like he's open for further conversation, but it doesn't sound like anybody ever questions it going further either. Or do they in the workplace?
Questions him. What do you mean?
Like just questions him after he makes that comment.
No, they either give him an opinion of their opinion, or they continue with the transaction.
Yeah, I think it shows up in a lot of situations. It shows up in situations, like you said, in the workplace. It shows up inside our own mind. It shows up in our relationships.
When I think about it, if it was in my own mind, I think I would be. I'd be thinking, "Oh, I'm overthinking about this. It's not. I'm gonna turn my attention somewhere else."
That's a real good point. That's a great idea. I think that's a really good idea, because that's a good indicator you're thinking into something, if that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and I'm done with it.
That sounds like a very smart avenue to me, to use it on your behalf. But the way that you're using it is using it in the direction of reducing the struggle in your own life, inside your own thinking mind. And if that's what works for you to either slow your mind or get out of your mind, I say that's your own wisdom supporting you in doing that.
But if I'm saying it to someone else, it's probably because I'm tired of listening to what they have to say. So, okay, but I don't know that I would feel any different about it, because it'd be like, okay, I'm going to end this conversation like this and put my attention someplace else.
Yeah. And if you do, you can always come back with curiosity later. Is as your mind quiets on the topic and something else occurs to you, you always can go back in and re-engage with the conversation, or bring it back up to as a topic for conversation. But it doesn't have to be the end. Yeah, I love all these ways that it could be used in between, inside your own mind, inside your relationships, inside the workplace. And I think too, maybe even following this conversation, if somebody brings it up to you and you don't feel done, if you stay curious, you could also say, can we have can we visit on this at another time? I think that's always an opportunity to continue on or expand on it, when obviously two people could be in very different place at another time than where you are right now. Because if you're not feeling neutral and you're feeling, maybe you're feeling triggered, maybe you're feeling just on the verge of shutting it down. On the verge of shutting it down, and you're at that place, and it is what it is, and you're shutting down. It's like, you're not going to harvest any good fruit from that point forward. At that point, the conversation is no longer productive. So it might even be a stopgap. Might just be a stopgap, because you don't want to try to keep a conversation going when you're going into the land of, if this is not productive, this is not helpful.
I have to say, that's really interesting, this whole line that we're heading down, because for me, it took me so many years of staying in conversations I had no business being in. wanting to get my way, wanting to make a point, wanting the other person, especially my husband, to say, okay, I get it, or yes, you're right, or whatever that was. And it was so dramatic the day that I realized I don't have to do this. I can just turn around and walk out of the room. I said, I got to go, or it's over. And a week later, he said to me, what happened a week ago? That's the first time you've ever walked out on an argument. It wasn't exactly an argument. I didn't hear it that way. I just wanted my way.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't have told you that. And so the idea to be able to, even in a conversation, to look at the other person and myself and to say, well, that's just the way it is right now. I think I'll back off. I think I need to go look at where I'm going with this. I don't know where they're going with it, but I need to look at where I'm going with it because I'm getting all wound up about it. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Well, that makes so much sense because I mean, there was a day where, my gosh, I stayed in a conversation because there was a part of me that you've got to understand what I'm saying. You have to hear me. I don't feel like you're hearing me. It's like, oh my God. And we always had this joke. It's like, oh my God, you've gone outside, now you're climbing in the bathroom window. So you can yell from the bathroom window going, no, you need to understand what I'm saying. It was like, no, but there was some deep, deep insecure place inside of me that felt like you've got to hear me out and you've got to understand where I'm coming from. And it was like, there's nothing productive from that. You're so, to me, in my mind, feeding the insecurity, there's nothing productive coming from that. You're strictly feeding it an insecurity that is insatiable.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the saying about, I'm out of my right mind on this one. I'll come back. I'll be back. But you can get that gut feeling when you're out of your right mind.
I'm starting to realize how much, when I think I have expressed myself clearly, that the person that I'm talking to didn't hear it. And whether it's my lack of clarity when I was explaining, but I say things to people and I think they know what I'm talking about. And then I realize they don't know. How could they know? It's amazing to me. And I think about, again, how we're all in our own world, creating it as we see. So I don't know, maybe I'm creating it. People don't know what I'm talking about, but I really don't think that a lot of times people do.
No, and I think in our world, if we're speaking the same language, whatever language that may be, and for this conversation, we'll assume English, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm speaking English. Why aren't you getting this? But to your point, we'll use the language we're talking about now. It's like, there is what it is playing, and there is what it is could be loaded with their perception. And you're speaking words that aren't matching that perception. So you think you're speaking clearly from what you see, but it's not getting in to their perception. And all of those things are spinning at the same time. So that's what I love about always be curious and come back and say, amuse me. Tell me what you think I just said. Just amuse me. And then they tell you what they think you just said, and you're like, really? You got that out of what I just said? I was like, can I take another stab at it? Because I think I'm missing the mark, because that's not at all what I meant, But again, you're keeping that air of curiosity going. And that separate realities, meaning everyone is seeing the world through their own personal lenses, is a big contributor to it is what it is. Like, me throwing my hands up and going, oh my God, they're impossible. I'm done. I'm out. I'm folding my cards. All of that is wrapped up in my perception of that human being. I'm not neutral. And anything I'm not neutral on tends to wear on me. It doesn't tend to wear on the other person one bit. That's why I come back to that place going, I'm all about what in struggle and suffering. And that's when I find those kinds of things that pop up, I'm like, and it's my job, truly my job, to get over my own perceptions of things. Sadly, nobody's running to the front door to come in and fix it and make it better for me. Let me help you straighten your thinking. It's like, no, nobody's waiting in line at the front door to do that. It's got to be between me and my own mental misunderstanding of what I'm seeing, possibly seeing.
I also noticed that I'm not as interested in, I realize how there a lot of times it doesn't matter what I'm saying and they're not getting, and so I realize that it's not so important for me to share that information. If it is, then I'll stay, but if it's not, then why am I taking up their time and mine too? It reminds me, I remember a long time ago, I realized I didn't have to answer the phone when it rang. And I was just stunned. I just went, how come I didn't know that before? But it's kind of when it came to mind anyway.
Yeah, which is to me an indicator of a higher level of functioning. There's it sounds so simple, but it's so much to me, Bobby. Your example of I don't have to answer the phone when it rings is an awakening of a higher level of functioning, because we're waking up to something so simple, but you didn't see it before you saw it, and that's a beautiful thing. There's spaciousness around that, and how many of those things do we operate under that we don't realize? It is what it is. I have to answer the phone every time it rings. It's like, really?
Made that rule.
Yes. And more times than not, if you can stay curious on anything, to me, curiosity is the antidote of expanding your suffering. Is to me, it's an invitation for your higher intelligence to bring you something else on a topic.
One of the things I keep hearing in this conversation is it's about listening too. So if I'm talking to somebody and going on and on and on, and I have no idea what it is they're getting, I'm only thinking about myself. I'm not really listening for anything. And sometimes it's like I have to reel myself back in. Like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not all about you. There's another person here that I'm talking to or talking with, hopefully. And when I stop listening, then there's no longer the give and take. I'm not responsible for what they're doing, whether they're listening. But if I listen to them, I know what they were hearing usually by the response, that I can alter the way I can. A lot of those things of having to leave the conversation, it's the deal of staying in a conversation till it's over, which can be really hard I find it's challenging and it's vulnerable for me. With somebody I've been friends with for 50 years, we still go through that vulnerability of, can I really say that to her? That this made me, that I'm feeling whatever it is. And it's all wrapped up in this. Instead of just saying, I'm done, it is what it is, goodbye. It's like, how do I stay in the conversation till it actually has some closure to it for both of us? And it's not always possible. Sometimes we do have to hang up and say, later, we'll talk later, or one of us does that. The other person may take it personally, but okay. We each get to go away and do whatever it is we do with all of that and come back together and have a different conversation.
But to your point, it's like, if you have two people that are willing, it's like speaking to a wall. If you don't have another person that's willing, then that's when I think you if you're clear within yourself, you've done everything with on your side of the street to, you know, bring connection or understanding or something like that. But if somebody's not willing to meet you in that conversation, then you have to discern for yourself. Are you clean with it? Are you neutral on it? I've done all I could do. But if there's someone willing, open and willing to explore a conversation with you, and so to your point, really give you an opportunity to listen to what they're sharing and to fully understand. Because oftentimes when people start to share, we get triggered and then we can't hear.
Right.
You know, and then our defenses have now kind of been, are those earplugs that have gone in, and we can't really hear. All we can hear is danger, danger, danger. You know, get out of here. So it's like if we could realize that all of that is going on inside our heads, and we could really come back to a more solid place to listen. Am I willing to be wrong? Am I willing to be wrong that this is a danger, danger, danger situation? Am I willing to be wrong? And typically, if you're on the phone, you're safe. You can always hit the red button and hang up anytime you want. And you certainly wouldn't physically put yourself in the presence of someone that you would feel threatened by. We're not suggesting that at all. But, you know, can I keep my ears open and lean in to listen? Because what I'm making up, could I possibly be wrong about this? And if you ask people to really stay in the conversation until you fully understand, I do that a lot. I do that a lot. It's like, hey, I might be the dumbest crayon in the box, but can you hang with me until I understand? I mean, I got nothing on it. You know, I just really want to get what your meaning is, because I can tell you my mind's not making up a good meaning about this. I'm completely transparent. And I was like, I got nothing on it, but I really, really want to understand what it is that you're saying and what that means to you.
Yeah.
It kind of expands the definition of listening, because it's every word, even I know in the English language, you know, it can have such a flavor to it, a different flavor per person, per their reality. You know, I laugh because the word evidently, it seems to be one of those words that evidently might just be a neutral word in the English language. But if you hear people use it, well, evidently, I mean, you can hear all the ways that evidently can have a flavor to it. Obviously, that's another good one. That's another really good one. It's like, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, because I can tell you what I make up about, obviously.
But we even have facial expressions to go with them. Like
an eye roll, an eyebrow. I mean, a raised eyebrow,
Right.
you name it. Yeah. But I love that, what you're adding about that. I love that. Yeah, we're not even going to get into all that nonverbal communication. We're just trying to deal with what's verbal. Yeah. I don't want any more suffering, you know? It's like in everyday life, we deal with things we never knew we'd have to deal with. So how can we not create more suffering and being in relationships, since none of us are islands, and nobody wants to be an individual without any sort of communication or connection to other human beings on the planet. So if you don't have any other questions about anything else, we can come to a close, or anything else that you're reflecting on that came to mind during the conversation. It is what it is. Lisa's saying it is what it is on her sound. So, so that in wrapping up, it's like I come back to it. It is what it is. I invite you, if you want to suffer less and struggle less, is to stay curious if it doesn't feel neutral. If it doesn't feel neutral. And there's no magic wand and there's no magic pill. It's just noticing when a feeling of resolve, a feeling of bringing a conversation to a close, a feeling of, I've got nothing else to say, so I'm going to interject this just to make an exit from the conversation. And even if somebody does say it is what it is, it's like, You could always ask a question, well, tell me what it looks like it is to you. You can keep the conversation going. Because every human being is coming to a conversation with their own spin of what they see with their eyes. They are not seeing the world through your eyes. And to me, one of those, that part about every person seeing the world through their own eyes as they see it, consciously and not consciously, that to me gives some spaciousness around staying curious. Because they truly cannot see what you're seeing the way you're seeing it. And if they matter to you.
To be curious, to want to know how they feel.
Yes. Yes.
You know, really. I always say to people, well, what does that, I don't understand. What does that mean? Because I really want to know.
Yeah.
I've had people not react so lovely at times, but that's okay. They're just they got their own stuff going. Because I really do want to know. It's not like I think and I'll say to them, I'm not coming from a place where I think I know what you mean, but I want to hear you say it. So I don't have to be right. I just want to know, what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to you? And why does that matter to you?
Yeah.
I think that really helps too, a second piece of why does that matter to you? Because you'll get to a deeper glimpse inside of them about,
Well, yeah.
about
If
why.
the first one pisses them off, though, I usually wouldn't ask the second one. But it's only happened once or twice where somebody got really angry, but it was a family member, so you got to sort of go, okay, well, whatever. I'll go with this a different way, but.
Yes. Yeah. But if you can.
Why does it matter?
No,
Yeah.
why does it matter? Tell me how that matters to you.
Oh, right. How does it matter? Why does it matter to you?
Yeah, to you, because it's more curiosity inside that individual, because we don't know why it matters to them.
Right. And just saying, why does it matter is like, I don't think it matters, but
Right.
you know, the world doesn't think it matters, but obviously you do.
That's right. Evidently, it means
Exactly.
you know, because you could ask somebody, it's like, gosh, okay, I won't use the word evidently if you tell me why that matters to you. Well, so-and-so said it to me when I was 7, and it always triggers me. It's like, oh, okay, I can deal with that, but they still have to get over themselves. But it's like, okay, I don't have to use that word. There's other words I can use, but at least you understand why it bugs them.
When you were talking about that, I thought of this Marcia, who I grew up with, and she never said the word because we were little kids, but she had a look, and that's exactly what it said, like, evidently, you're just an idiot. But that's what and I realized, geez, that's a huge trigger for you. If you're thinking about Marcia from 70 years ago, you might want to take a look at that.
That's so great. That is so great. Yeah, we don't need those bones in the closet, you know. No.
One of in this big order I took with, I looked for this beautiful piece of wood because I thought that it fit what these people were looking for, and it's really beautiful. I mean, it's actually a piece of walnut. You know, it's not, you know, something else anyway. And I brought it and I showed it to them, and she immediately went like that. And she didn't want any part of it because it reminded her of framing in her in-laws' old house. And so I thought it was so interesting, you know, and matter of fact, we talked about it. I said, you know, this is like this beautiful piece of wood. And because you have this association with it, you know, it's like, it's from the 80s, it's this, that, and the other, you know, and I thought it was really interesting, you know, that she
that's perfect.
And that, and, you know, and that we all have some associations with things that we see and make judgments about that are well, it's, you know, I guess that's just who we are as individuals. You know, we've got our history and we bring it to whatever we're looking at.
Exactly. So in that place of that piece of walnut molding, she was
Mhm.
not in a place, it is what it is. There was a whole lot more to her.
Yeah.
You see what I
Yeah.
mean? But in a neutral
Yeah.
place, it's just a piece of walnut molding. And
Yeah.
here's a fact.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
that's a beautiful example of that delineation between when you hear that or use it, are you really neutral? Is it just a piece of walnut molding?
Mhm.
Or is it the in-laws at XYZ? That is a beautiful way to gauge what you're holding and how you're holding it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Perfect example. So I invite you to stay curious. I invite you to stay curious, and you'll have a much quieter mind and a lot less drag in your day-to-day experience of life. And you don't have to work so hard. If you stay curious, you listen for, for more information. To use Susan's point, listen more. You don't have to work so hard. Thank you for listening to this conversation on the popular phrase, "It is what it is." I hope you expanded your perspective of this popular phrase, and that when the next time it pops up, the aperture of your curiosity will be expanded. This is Cherie Ray, and I appreciate you listening.